Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live this week. We have a special guest. Amanda Louder is here. She is the Christian sexual coach. Christian sex coach, I think is what what your tag is.
Yes.
Amanda and I have been friends for a while. We met in coach training and all the things, and we've talked a lot about sex and Christianity and womanhood and all the things. And so Ruth and I thought that it would be really fun to have Amanda come on our live this week because she's the expert in this. She has a podcast, she has a coaching program, and she helps lots of couples with this part of their lives. And we just appreciate you being here, Amanda. And we'll let you kind of introduce yourself. How do we want to work this? Do you want to just introduce yourself and we'll give
Sure.
you some topics, or how do you want to do it?
Whatever you want to do. I'm your guest and thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm Amanda Louder. I'm a certified sex and marriage coach. I help mostly women and couples overcome obstacles to create better sexual relationship. So that's kind of what I do. And I
Mhm.
love it so much. Been doing it for about 5.5 years. So
Awesome. Awesome. So we did a part one of becoming a high value woman as a sexual goddess. And we kind of talked about these points, but we really wanted to about them a little bit more in depth and get your feedback on them. So the three topics that we have are um, that she takes care of herself and what that means, and that she's committed and loyal and what that means, and that she gives value liberally and what that means. So what is your take on women and how they take care of themselves as far as presenting themselves as a high value woman, as a sexual goddess?
yeah, I mean, I think so much of our sexuality comes across in how we present ourselves. Like when you are sexual, it comes out in the way that you dress, in the way that you move, in the way that you talk. And not that you're, being crude or brash or anything like that, but you exemplify and you aren't afraid of who you are and who you were created to be. And that gets put out to the world. Um, you know, I had a client one time who was coming to me for help with her sexual relationship. And she said to me something really interesting. She said, I saw all of these women who appeared to be, embracing their sexuality. And that was scary to me. And I did not want to be her. And so instead of becoming low maintenance, because I didn't want to be high maintenance, that's what she like judged these women as, high maintenance, right? Instead of being low maintenance, I became no maintenance, and she really just didn't want to take care of herself. And what later came out was that she had been sexually abused and sexually assaulted, and so she wanted to completely shut down her sexuality so that she was not attractive to anyone, including herself. And so, part of that was that, but as we worked together, she realized, okay, well, I might not be at the same level like I am. I would consider myself fairly high maintenance, but I'm high maintenance to be low maintenance. But really, it's because I value how my appearance is, and I value who I am as a person. And I want to be attractive, not only to my husband, but to myself. And, we have to turn ourselves on. We have to be attractive to ourselves. And if we are, not taking care of ourselves, and that doesn't mean you have to be dressed to the nines every single day, right? We can totally be casual and be fine. But if you're not showering, if you're not, moving your body, if you're not eating in a healthy way, it's usually you're not really attracted to yourself. You're not turning yourself on. You're basically saying, this doesn't matter to me and I'm not going to care about it. And it's almost a conscious decision because you don't want to be attractive. And there we've got to look at some trauma. But if you really want to be attractive to yourself and to your spouse, there's got to be some effort there.
Yeah,
Hey, Amanda, I have
I
a
agree.
question about this.
Yeah.
So how often do you find this is a problem? Because I know the stats. The stats are, especially like girls who grew up in the 90s,
Yeah.
sexual abuse was huge.
Huge.
So we're gonna, 1 in 4 of the women that we're talking to
Yep.
have dealt with this, and that was before the age of 18. So when you hit
Right.
college, that's a whole other statistic.
Right.
So how often do you find this? The idea that if I'm dirty, predators won't come to me. How often does that happen?
I mean, I don't see it a ton in the women that that I work with. Like I mean, I don't work with women who have been abused or had sexual assault unless they have worked with a therapist and worked through the trauma. That's just out of my scope as a coach. But I do find a lot of women who, are overwhelmed with life, and maybe they're tired of their husband approaching them for sex all the time, and so they just choose not to take care of themselves, because if I do this, then maybe he won't. And it doesn't help her feel better about things. It actually makes her feel worse about herself, and it doesn't help the dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
That's interesting. So I have my own like opinions and um meanderings in my mind, but you've just said it so clearly, obviously, because you work with women in this capacity that's very vulnerable and lots of things come out, right?
Yep.
But I've had my own questions and things about that the women that feel like they don't want to take care of themselves, or it's more like they don't think they're a priority. The priority is, everyone else and everything else.
Yep.
And, they just get the leftovers.
Yeah. Which is really goes back to their mindset about who they are as a person and what they deserve. Right.
Mhm.
So I do retreats for women every February. And one of my favorite things to do at the retreats is boudoir photography for all of my guests. And it's so interesting to see the different ways that people approach it, because you'll get the women that are like super excited about it. They're more like, yes, I want to do this, I want to see myself in this way, and like I can't wait to share them with my spouse. And then other women are like, nope, nobody's going to see this. I don't even think I want to do this. Right. And of course I'm going to honor their wishes and their desires if they're really, really against it. Although a lot of them that like they come to the retreat saying, nope, not going to do this. Then like by the end, they're like, they do it and they're glad that they did it. I mean, all of them are glad they did it at the end. But even just watching, they're like, okay, fine, everybody else is doing it, so I'll do it too. And they go into the room, and like I'm there with, not in the room with the photographer, but like I'm there outside the door supporting them, helping them get ready. I have hair and makeup people that work their magic to make them look their absolute best, right? And then they go into the room with the photographer, and they're so nervous and they're so shy, and they're like, these pictures are, I don't even know, they're not going to look very good, or I'm too fat, or I'm too whatever, right? And they go in and they come out completely different. Like the photographers that I have that work with these women, like they're so good about hyping them up and posing them in beautiful ways so they look their best, and they show them like, in the camera what they look like. They're like, wait, that's me? Like, I look like that? That's beautiful. Like they see themselves in a completely different way than they ever have before. And I've seen, as I've, watched women, like they've come to my retreat and what's happened. And then, in the progression of things, and they change how they're showing up in the world. They're like, oh, wait, like if I actually like maybe do my hair and, slap on some mascara or something, like it can make that big of a difference in how I feel about myself and how I'm presenting myself to the world. Like I'm way more attracted to myself doing this than I was before. totally changes their perspective.
I absolutely love that story. Okay. So I think, Amanda, I think this is playing into one of the philosophies that Sherry and I have is women teach women how to be women.
Mhm.
A lot of times, like wives, we get into ourselves, or women, we're like, oh, if I don't do this, then the men won't find me attractive.
Yeah.
But like if you get in a group of guys, I mean, they are willing to have sex with about 95% of women in a room, right? Like they're programmed for it. It's
Yeah.
the women that have told the other women,
Yeah.
this is what a woman needs to look like, right? Like I was
Yep.
having a conversation with my daughters earlier. It's the wives, it's the moms that are saying, daughters, like in China back in the day, it's the moms pulling their daughters aside saying, daughters, we're going to bind your feet. Because if you don't have bound feet, then your husbands aren't going to find you attractive.
Yeah.
Right. Or in some, I can't remember I know Jessica Simpson, she did a really cool, like she toured the world and what different cultures find as beautiful. And some women, before they get married, they go on like fat camp because they're trying to gain like 60 or 70 pounds because that is what's beautiful. Right.
Yeah.
Or like some women in some cultures, they like acid their face so that it's pale white, because the acidy white face is what's beautiful. And then in our culture, like when I was growing up, women would spend like, 4 hours a day in the tanning bed because that orangey red skin was what was beautiful. Or the anorexia, or if you look through a history of time, you go through just even back in 100 years or 200 years, we've had like the anorexic body was beautiful. And then we've had like the Mediterranean curvy body is beautiful. And then we have like the squishy, 150, 60 pound, 4'4" woman is beautiful. So it's women that we're teaching us what is beautiful, what is sexually attractive. Like we are doing it. And I remember once something was like, I think it was in college, and I think I was watching some fashion show, and they made the point that pornography is for men, but high fashion is for women. And at my time, in my area, in my culture, it was the high fashion that was being pointed at, the women basically naked. And my mom, she studied to be fashion in college for a little while until she worked under some high fashion, something. And the director there said, our goal is to have people nude in the next 30 years.
Wow.
So that was against her. She was like, well, then I'm out of a business. Like, first of all, that feels wrong to me as a woman. Second of all, that doesn't say anything about my ability to design clothes if it's all about her naked body, So she was out for that. But that just kind of struck me, like, if we look at the high fashion and we point at those women and be like, I can never be like that, men will never love me. But that's the women doing that to ourselves. We think we're being loving. This is how you're going to be successful in life. This is how you're going to have a successful mate, is to do this to your body. But men like us because we're women.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. I remember. So I was married to my first husband, and then we got divorced, and it was an emotionally abusive relationship. It revolved all around my weight and my size and how much I ate and how much I exercised, and was really terrible. And then I was, dating and getting married to my second husband, and I had all of this insecurity about myself and my body and everything because of what I had been told. And, and I had some lingering stuff left over from childhood and teenage years, and, people saying to me like, watch out, thighs, here it comes, or whatever, like when I'm putting stuff in my mouth, the different things like that. So I had all of that, right? And my husband was like, you're so beautiful. I love you so much. I like your curves. I like your stretch marks. I like it all. Right. And I'm like, wait, what? You like that? Like what? How does that work? And what I realized is like, all these people have different ideas, but yet the man I love, the man that I'm going to marry, likes me just the way that I am. Is he a liar? No, he's not. Maybe he's the truth, and all these other people have an agenda. Right. And even after we'd been married for a few years, I lost like 40 pounds. And he was like, I love you. I think you're so beautiful. And I'm so proud of you and the work you've put in. And I kind of miss your butt. So if you want to gain some weight back, then I'm totally on board with that. And if you don't, that's fine too. But I just know that. And I'm like, okay. Wait, I don't have to starve myself for the rest of my life in order to be attractive and beautiful. And that's, like, it really is. It's media, it's culture, it's corporations, it's other women, because the men who love us, they just want us to be us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I would say partly is also that I would say it's the adversarial voice in our head,
For sure.
because God knows our power and God knows our potential, and so does the devil. So if
Yep.
he can get in there and plant those lies, because sometimes I can look and be like, well, nobody told me that. I already had that idea for myself. I just believed them when they told me because I already had it started.
Yeah.
But if the devil can take down women, he can take it down at all, because we're so powerful. And you look at history.
Yep.
You look at history. When women are mistreated, he is so winning, because it goes into so many things. But like that lie of like, you have to be this way to be sexually desirable or to be lovable or blah, 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 blah. Then he wins, because it's such a lie. He is the father of all lies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And men would rather have a woman who was a little chubby and wanted him than a model who was like, I ain't got time for you.
100%.
Yep. I think that at least in my coaching and then in my own marriage, I also have been quite a bit heavier than I am now. And my husband's like, I actually don't care. I don't care. He said, I can see what it does for you to have lost the weight. I'm so attracted to the confidence that you have. So if you could have this confidence and put the weight back on, I actually wouldn't care. The weight isn't the thing that I'm attracted to. It's the confidence that you have in yourself that I think is beautiful.
Just
And
own
that
what
was
you've got,
pretty,
whatever that is.
yeah, that is pretty stinking amazing.
Yeah.
That I was kind of like brain blown about that, because then I started thinking about all the things I do in my job and that I've done for the last 27 years as a hairstylist. And confidence is attractive. Confidence is attractive. So whatever you need to do for yourself to be confident in who you are as a person, that in and of itself makes you more attractive, which is pretty cool.
100%.
Yeah.
Hey, Amanda, I'm always thinking of like the what ifs. So what if women are listening to this and they're like, yeah, I want to believe that. But my husband, I think like you were saying, your previous husband, you had experiences where she wasn't getting that feedback from him. He was picking at her. So like, what kind of advice do you have for that woman? I guess.
Well, I mean, know your own value. I think working on that mental health and your confidence, boundaries. I think boundaries are really important. And, deciding what you're willing to hear. I mean, I wish I had had the tools that I have now when I was married to him, because I think things would have been a lot different. But yeah, boundaries. Don't let anybody talk to you that way, because that's more about them than it is about you.
Yeah. And I said before, women teach women how to be women, and then the men believe us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sure your ex-husband, he was told the same things that you were probably told, right? Like, in different settings.
Yep.
This is what a woman needs to do to be beautiful. This is what a woman needs to do to show her husband love. And he believed that also. But when we change our narrative, then men start to believe it too. They start to know it. And it's kind of like the value of things. When you put a price tag on something, like let's just say I keep like, okay, there's cars, and I can't even think of the name of brand of cars. I remember this because my college roommate, she bought a car and it was like a Geo or something. I'd never heard of it. And she said, yeah, it actually comes right off of I think it was a Nissan. I could be getting this wrong, but you have like the Nissans that are
Chrysler,
maybe.
I think.
Okay. So the
GLC.
Chrysler is a higher priced car, at least it was for me as a college girl. So it was like the cars would come over here, but then they had to have a store brand. It's the exact same car, different logo, different price tag, and people value it differently. So if we're the same woman and we say, I take any taker, hit me if you want, talk to me how you want. I just take any first come, first serve, then that's what you're going to get. But if you say, no, I demand this kind of treatment, I demand a ring, I demand a wedding certificate, I demand, then you'll get it because they believe you because you believe it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Okay. So let's move to the next one. She's committed and loyal. Once she finds her mate, her energy is unavailable to other men.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
I think we're all energetic beings, right? And we produce, this high vibration energy or low vibration energy. And a lot of times what attracted us, like our spouse, to us is the energy that we give off, right? I mean, there's looks and who you are and all that, but like energy matters, right? So I have a friend who she is very in touch with her sexual energy, right? And she loves to love on her spouse, right? She's probably the higher desire partner, and doesn't make that energy available to others, but other people read it and are attracted to her, right? But she has clear boundaries. And I think, I mean, I often think I'm the same way. Like tend to be high energy. I think I exude sexuality because that's who I am, because I embrace it in myself. But I know, and I have boundaries, that it's only available to my husband. I'm not going to engage in that kind of behavior with anyone but him, because that's who I am, even if other people try to engage with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to be clear on. And I think we each have to be clear on that for ourselves and recognize that for ourselves, because I have heard, it was never told to me as a kid, but some of my friends' moms were not taking care of themselves like my mom was, let's just say, right? And the reason was because they were not available to other men. So it was like they now didn't.
I have my husband and now I don't need to put in any effort.
Yeah. Or like if I did put in other effort, then another man might be attracted to me.
Yeah.
And that would be a no. Like you can't have other men attracted to you. That's wrong to have other men attracted to you. And that was really weird to me. I mean, even as a young girl, I was like, that's odd. But my mom worked as a banker, and so she wore a suit and put herself together every day and was the manager and all the things. And she taught me that you don't go outside the house until you're done. And she wasn't flashy. Like she wore mascara. That's it. She did paint her hair, like pencil her eyebrows on, but she didn't she had really short pixie hair. She wore a suit. Like she was pretty low maintenance, I would say, but she did her hair and she had her face on and she was ready for the day before she left anywhere. And she wasn't ever in sweats. Like I think I ever saw her in sweats. Right. And so to me, I just thought that was odd. But I think that what you're saying is I do this for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it for my husband. And I don't do it for anybody else. I do it for me. And so when I'm out in the world, if I get a second look from someone of the opposite sex, look all you want, pal. It ain't for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way that's my boundary, or the way I think about it. Like, I'm not doing this for you. You might be attracted to it. Doesn't matter to me, because I'm not doing it for you. I think that's a distinction that we need to make as women.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think the fact that somebody is attracted to you, I don't think that in itself is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
the same as like I can see women and I can be like, gosh, she's so beautiful. She's super hot. That doesn't mean anything other
We
than
appreciate beauty wherever
she's
it is.
attractive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like if men can't appreciate beauty in her, how can they appreciate beauty in me? Like if my man, like, right? Like,
Mhm.
how, like if I really want him, if I want to believe his compliments, then he's gonna like, right? That doesn't make sense to me. The idea that somebody finding me attractive that isn't my husband, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I
But
think
it's
so many times
it's
we try to control
yeah,
how other people think, which is very manipulative,
yeah,
right? Rather than just like showing up in the world in a way that's authentic to us
mhm,
and letting people think whatever they're going to think, good
yeah,
or bad.
yeah.
Mhm.
But like even like, but why is that bad? It feels very like, I don't know, like dark agey.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if someone didn't think I was
Yes.
pretty, like,
Oh
I
yeah,
don't care.
sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
I had a train of thought with this. Oh, okay. So this idea that like I shouldn't be attractive and that will keep the bad guys away.
Yeah.
And to me, this is like I actually went through this in college. My first year of college, I didn't shower. Like I maybe showered on Sunday because that was my idea. Like if I am gross, then the douchebags in the world won't see me. But what I learned in that year is it's not true. Predators, because it's about the energy that you were talking about, Amanda.
Energy.
It's the energy that you put off. And predators, the reason we call them predators is because they're predators. The difference between a hunter and a predator is the hunter is going to find the brightest, the shinest, the biggest rack, like the biggest body. And they're going to go for the biggest. And they're going to, if they're a victor, because they picked and won the biggest, the best. Whereas the predator sees the weakest, the sickest, the oldest, the youngest, the easiest to take apart. And that's why they're predators. They don't care if you're wearing mascara or not. It's about the energy that you have of how easy you are as prey.
Yes.
So that year of college, I realized I don't get rid of the bad guys. I just lose interest in the good guys. And it's actually the good guys around me that keep the bad guys away. And that energy of like, I deserve to be in this pack and you ain't got right. Like, I don't have time. Like, you ain't getting nothing here, bro. And that was the energy that you have. You can be a beautiful woman and have nobody touching you but your husband. Nobody has touched me, right? Like, nobody has touched me. And you can be never shower and you still get those crazies.
Yeah.
So it's your energy. And now you're missing out on this awesome sex life with your husband because you don't have boundaries of where it's appropriate and where it's not. And this idea that you're controlling somebody else's behavior. Now you're just like, I don't have any of it.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Amanda?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I love it. Let's see. Where are we on our thing?
We were on Give Liberally. I want to hear Amanda's take on just in your career. You say that the top things that you work with people.
Probably the biggest thing I work with people is desire discrepancies.
Okay, meaning? Oh, like the husband and wife have different desires?
Yes. Like,
okay, let's talk about
one
that.
is
I want to hear
higher
that.
desire, one is lower desire. Typically what I see is higher desire men, lower desire women. I think because there are a lot of higher desire women. I would say about 40% of relationships, the woman is the higher desire partner, but it's not as socially acceptable. And if the man is the lower desire partner, there's a lot of shame about that. I mean, there is for women too, but women are more likely to get help for it because it's more socially acceptable for them to be lower desire. What they don't tell us is that desire discrepancies are normal in every marriage. Now, occasionally you'll get somebody who they have fairly similar desire levels, which happens rarely, but it is possible. But for probably 95% of couples, there are going to be desire discrepancies, and that is normal. And that is a dynamic that has to be worked through together. That doesn't mean she's broken and she needs to come up to his level. That doesn't mean that he's a sex addict and he needs to calm down. That means that it is a dynamic between the two of you that takes both of you working on it. But
I like that.
that is the number one thing people come to me for.
I like that. Question about that. How much of that is just personality and how much of that is season of life? I remember in human development learning about like the sexual patterns and how
Mhm.
women start lower and then they hit their 30s and they go up, and then after menopause it's like really high, whereas men are like high and then they kind of go down. That's what I remember from 20 years
I
ago in
know that
college.
they say that. And I mean, maybe that's true in some instances. But I mean, I do think a lot of it has to do with time of life, right? But I get a lot of like perimenopausal, postmenopausal women who are like, nope. Right. But that often has to do with lower hormones, not because we need to depend on hormones for desire, because we don't, but because with those lower hormones, there's often physical factors that
Mhm.
play into it, including like pain that can come from dryness in the vagina. Clitoral atrophy is a real thing. Like if you have lower estrogen, then your clitoris can actually start to atrophy, and that makes it so it's less pleasurable and then sometimes even painful. So we have to deal with a lot of the other factors that go into that. You know, when a lot of women are in their 20s, right, they're like having babies, and like there's not just the up and down hormones from that, but there's also, you know, just being exhausted all of the time, being
And all
touched
the
out
touching.
all the time. Now, the touched out's an interesting thing because, you know, our children, they are extracting from us, right? That's why we feel touched out, because we feel like they're extracting from us. If we view sex as something for men, then it also feels extracting. But can we view it as a way to nourish ourselves and replenish ourselves and be given to? Then you're not touched out. Then you're craving it, you're wanting it, you're wanting to replenish yourself. So it's I mean, a lot of it's mindset, a lot of it's the way that the conditioning that you've received, how you view sex, that plays a lot into it. It doesn't matter your age.
I like that.
So like if we're looking at like, so women at the age of 18, testosterone is about 76 micrograms per deciliter. But by the time we're 40, it's half that. Okay. So like testosterone is the physiological driver for sex. So if we are depending on hormones to tell us when we have desire, which, I mean, testosterone peaks ovulation. It also has a small peak during your menstrual cycle. So a lot of times women will feel more desire once or twice a month. That's hormonal. But you know, you start to get older and yes, it goes down. Now, where it often picks up for women is one, learning that you don't need to rely on your hormones for it. And I think, you know, the women who definitely feel more desire as they age, it's because they don't care anymore. They don't have all of the drama around their body and everything else. They're ready to just shed all of that and step into who they are. And that's why their libido increases. I mean, desire is a feeling which is created with the way that you think. So if you're thinking like, oh, sex is just for him, why does he want it all the time? I have no reason to do this. Like I've got too many other things on my plate. Like, of course your desire level is going to be low. If you're looking at it as purely hormones, you're going to get a peak maybe once or twice a month and that's it. But when you're attracted to yourself, when you know how to turn yourself on, when you know how to think the right things to get yourself in the mood, you create sexual context, is which our brain is always scanning for sexual context. So it's looking at what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch, what we imagine. That makes a big difference, right? So you're creating that sexual context, your desire levels are going to go through the roof if you're creating it. People ask me all the time, like, you just must be like really high desire all the time. And I'm like, I am, but it's not like, I'm not just like constantly craving sex. What I'm craving is him. I'm craving my relationship with him, being touched by him. Like, if it was just about sex, I could go do that if I want, like, but that's not what it's about. It's about him and creating that sexual context where we can be together and come together. And that's completely different. Now, I said women have, at the age of 18, 76, and by the time we're 40, it's half that. The average man has about 1,000 anagrams per deciliter. 76 versus
That's our
1,000,
peak.
right? So, like, it's no wonder they have this constant drive. And rather than looking at that as a problem, what a blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing it is in our lives that they have this physiological drive to want to connect.
Yeah. I've talked to my husband about this a lot because I think about all the work that he has to put in to like talk me into it. My thing with him is I never reject him. I just, at this point, I just say, I am totally willing for you to talk me into it.
Oh,
'Cause that's how-
you have
that's-
responsive desire. It
Yes.
responds to sexual context.
Yes.
So he's creating that context for you to respond to.
Yes. Yes. I like to have sex. But I'm not like him in that it's like, I just say, babe, I want to have sex. And he's like, ready.
Exactly. Because he has more spontaneous desire, which
Yes.
we often see as the right kind of desire, because that's what we
Yes.
see in media and movies and porn and all that.
Mhm.
But like about, 80% of men have spontaneous desire, and
Mhm.
about 10 to 20% of women have spontaneous desire.
Yeah. I like this because when you have somebody who is always ready and somebody who takes some time to work for it, it's the work that makes it valuable. Like everything that takes more effort is more valuable. But if it took both people a lot of effort, we would never do it. Like if it took me as much energy and effort to talk him into it as he does for me, we and like all day I'm like coaxing the kids and attract the kids into things like blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh, if I had to do that with my husband.
So
Right?
I listened to
I'm like so
Glennon
happy.
Doyle's. I listened to Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, and she is queer, and her wife is Abby Wambach, right? And they're always talking about like, we should probably be having sex more, but both of them are responsive desire, right? They don't have one of them that is more spontaneous desire that's driving those sexual connections. So, I mean, they have a lot of great qualities of their relationship, but that's one that they're always like, yeah, that's probably not the best, because they don't have one of them driving it.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think also what society has done, while they have, objectified women and sexualized women and, whatever, is they've kind of made men be the bad guys. And I just don't think that's fair, because they were actually designed to be the aggressor, right?
The
Or
initiator.
the initiator,
Yes.
right? And so I kind of feel bad that we are telling them they're wrong when that's how they were made. And I actually appreciate it because then I don't have to be.
Right.
I mean, I take that on as a trait that I want to have so that I can, facilitate my relationship and, whatever, that I'm the one that
Feel desired
initiates.
too. He
Right?
wants to feel desired by you, right? So
Right.
it's nice for you to
Mhm.
initiate every once in a while.
Yeah. And so that is something that we have we've talked about
Yeah.
and I work on, right? But I actually am kind of grateful
Yeah.
in a great big way that
Yep.
that it's not all on me. That part of our relationship is not my responsibility only, because it I have a lot of other responsibilities, and that
Yeah,
one would fall short, I'm pretty sure.
probably so.
Yeah.
You know? So
Mhm.
I don't know, I think there's a lot of things that women think, that if like the porn thing, I mean, that's a big deal. We have a lot of men that have gotten caught up in that, and so then women are feeling objectified, like all the things. And I I think it is useful to have conversations
Mhm.
around these things. Like what and and by conversations, maybe I mean um when these conversations are happening, that there's no judgment on either side. That you go into the conversation deciding that no matter what is said, you're not going to have a judgment. You're going to be curious.
Yeah.
Like, why does he think that way? Why? I wonder what that's about. It's not about me. I wonder what happened to him previous. I wonder what he's been told. I
Yep.
wonder what his ideas are. Like, these are conversations my husband and I have had, and holy cow, men are told all kinds of things too
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
Patrick,
not helpful in a
yeah.
relationship. They are not helpful.
Yeah. Patrick told me, yeah, we've had conversations where he was like, you just break so many of the myths that I was ever told about women. And I was like, because I'm a pretty normal woman. Like all my friends, like when we talk, I'm a very normal woman. Like, so yeah, they're told all kinds of lies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of, and you can talk to this, Amanda. Are there a lot of couples that are living in a relationship that is dictated by so much misunderstanding?
Yeah. So much misunderstanding. And it's not that I mean, they do come with so much like judgment and not a lot of curiosity, but they don't even know how to have the conversations because they were never taught, they were never modeled, they have preconceived notions, so I mean, a lot of the work that I do with couples is helping them be able to have more productive conversations where they actually get to know each other and understand each other better. That's what intimacy is. Intimacy is about being known and knowing. That's intimacy. We use intimacy as a euphemism for sex.
Mhm.
Sex and intimacy are different. And intimacy is about, can I know you and love you, even if I don't agree with you, even if I don't understand it, right? Can I still know you and love you? And can you fully know me and choose to love me, even if you don't agree with me? Even if you completely disagree with what I'm saying, can you still know me and love me in that? That's intimacy. And that's really what we both want. We
Mhm.
want to know that we're
So,
loved for who we are, not just for who we're showing to our partner.
mhm. Yeah. So can you like give us an example, kind of walk us through an example of, you have a couple that's watching and they're like, yeah, we've been married for 25 years. We're just kind of roommates. I don't like it. He doesn't like it. But all we do is fight over it. It just ends up being in a fight. And so then we just decide we don't want to fight. So we'd rather not fight. And I guess we
Yeah,
don't have sex either.
right.
Like,
Well,
how does the woman that's
yeah.
watching this, like,
Mhm.
what does she need to get into her own head about, so that she can start the conversation down this road?
Conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict is actually the way to more intimacy. What we want to avoid is contention. Like, we don't want the screaming, yelling, fighting, because that's not going to breed intimacy. But conflict, we're coming to the situation with two different points of view, two different perspectives. That's what conflict is. right? And actually conflict is more internal. Like I feel conflicted because I believe something and you believe something different. That's what conflict is. So, but conflict actually builds more intimacy, because if you will be curious, if you will try to understand, Brene Brown talks about sitting on the same side of the table. So I picture it like a booth at a restaurant, right? Like you're both sitting on the same side of the booth and you're looking at the problem. And okay, this is my perspective. This is what I'm seeing, right? And then you sit on the other side of the booth and like, okay, this is what I'm seeing. And you get to see each other's perspective. While you may not agree, because you don't have to agree, you at least know and are working to understand each other better. And that produces intimacy. And Stephen R. Covey says, seek to understand before being understood, right? So even if he is not going to ask her in return, she can say to him, I know that this has been a problem and I want to understand you. I want to see your perspective. Can you share with me what that looks like from your perspective? And she just gets to listen. She doesn't get to get defensive or contradict him or disagree or share her perspective. Hopefully he'll ask for her perspective. But if she can just, I want to see your perspective on this, then he's feeling seen and heard and understood. And that will reduce, hopefully, the contention. Right. And then
So
he's like, I want to see your perspective. And then she can share hers. And then they understand each other's perspectives. And then they can work together, especially if, once they can do this a lot, then they can start to work together to a more collaborative solution where both his perspective and her perspective are valued. And we want a win-win.
So what you're saying, what I hear you saying, is it's not about the other person getting, like, it's not about the wife getting the husband to agree with her perspective.
Right.
And it's not about you as the wife having to agree with the husband's perspective.
Right.
That's not what understand means.
Mm-mm.
Understand just means you have information of how he sees things.
Yes.
Or you have information about how she sees things.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that once you understand what he sees, that you then by default agree because you listened.
Correct.
That's not what that means.
No.
Just to be clear.
Yes.
You can,
He can have his
understand without agreeing.
Yes. You can
I know,
understand.
which is novel concept,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we like. If I understand you, then you're going to think I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes, that's what people are going to think.
and that's not what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would continue to be curious, like, okay, this is your perspective, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm seeing this right. This is your perspective. Can you help me understand why you see it that way? Tell me more. Tell me what the experience is behind it. Tell me what's happened to make you think and feel this way. Because when we can truly start to understand people and why they think the way they do, that's where compassion comes in. That's where more understanding, love, right? I mean, I truly think that's charity. That's the pure love of Christ. The reason why Christ could love everyone is because he understood their heart. He understood their perspective. He understood what they were thinking and feeling and why they thought and felt that way. And when we can start to adopt charity, but which means we have to take the time to seek to understand not only what they think, but why they think that way, then we can start to build bridges. Then we can extend that compassion and that empathy, even if you don't agree. Christ did not agree with many of the people that he ministered to because they were, breaking the laws of God or different things like that. He didn't necessarily agree with their behaviors, but he understood them. And that's where we need to get to in our marriage, in our relationships.
I totally agree. And I think that when someone feels understood in that whatever behavior that they're doing, even if it's, what we would consider bad behavior, even if that person is understood why they're reacting that way,
Mhm.
it is easier to change the behavior.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're seen and understood and not judged because you have a behavior, it is much easier to change that behavior than if you feel like you're being shamed or judged or wronged or, whatever. Then
Well,
you
that's
kind of hold
why
on.
That's why our work as coaches is so effective, because we are helping people. We see what's happening. We see their thought processes, their feelings, and why they're showing up the way we do. And we extend compassion and empathy and understanding. And we don't expect them to change,
Mhm.
but it makes it easier for them once they get the whole picture and they have someone who witnesses with no judgment.
So good. So good. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Amanda, where do we find you?
So my website is amandalauder.com. You can find me on Instagram at Christian Sex Coach, and my podcast, which is Sex for Saints.
Awesome. And what is your favorite offer to work with clients right now?
So my membership for women is awesome. Like it's $49 a month. Like it's so freaking cheap. And it encompasses so much education, amazing coaching, and really just helps you transform things. And yeah, that is definitely my favorite thing. But I also have my retreats for sale right now. So if you're interested in coming to one of these retreats, it's February 1st through 4th in St. George, Utah, and they're for sale on my website.
Cool. Love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that this is a favorite topic of yours, and it is a favorite topic of Ruth and I. We love talking about helping women be sexual goddesses. So we appreciate you coming on. And as always, those of you who are watching, please go check out Amanda's information. She has so much. Her podcast is great. She has so much information, and it to me, it's a refreshing perspective. So I encourage you to be in Amanda's world and get in her membership and go to the retreats and all the things. So, and then send questions either our way or to Amanda if you have questions and you want to dig it a little bit deeper. She's open. So do go into her DMs. She will talk to you in there. So ask questions and have her be one of your friends. It'll be great. So, all right, you guys, if you have any other things you want to ask us about, you can comment below, send us an email, however you want to reach out, and we will see you next time.